What were you saying? I don't understand.
So we're just trying to figure out what to do with Valor, because he would eat the pizza, but not the cheese and that stuff, and he was hungry in the evening. So
And then months ago, he would just eat the
he would just eat the
and he'd
pepperoni
eat all
before,
of them.
but
And
now he won't
don't
even eat the
bread.
pepperoni,
So-
just the bread.
So when he was a baby, was he lactose intolerant or unable to eat dairy?
I don't remember. They may have had.
I
some
think
issues.
there were
Did she
some.
breastfeed
She
him?
did breastfeed
Oh, really?
for
how
a
long?
while.
She did for a while.
But I think she stopped early because he wasn't getting enough, or I wasn't nutrition wise.
I don't
remember.
I think it was, yeah.
Has he ever been looked at to see if he has any absorption issues or anything with his
Not
GI
sure.
tract?
I don't know.
Yeah, that would be, you know, you always want to rule out anything obvious that would be a physical thing, and that there are absorption issues that children can have.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get into a cycle of a malnourished state, usually it's a mineral deficiency first, and there are certain minerals that if you don't have in your diet or you're lacking,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's studies where they have rats that will literally starve to death because they don't have, and that's one of the things, like with the anorexics, they have a mineral deficiency of this particular mineral. You put it back in their diet and the anorexia goes away.
Do you ever see any of this in your clinic?
I haven't seen any young children like this, but I used to see this in the emergency room and have a lot of training in this as far as with children in particular. We've been kind of socialized that little kids are supposed to eat like adults,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not true. I don't believe that's true. Like a 2-year-old, that's a very common age when kids go off food, or they go off a certain food. Like they used to love chicken, now they hate chicken, or,
Mhm.
or they used to
Yep.
love, bologna, and now you can't get bologna in the same room with them. So I think part of that is the body starts having different requirements as it's growing, and intuitively we know what to eat and we know what we're supposed to eat. One of the problems is our food is so terrible right now. That intuition's kind of garbled up
Mhm.
because we don't have good food
In our food.
there's no food in our food. But it's okay for a little kid to not eat. We've been socialized and taught that you have to eat 3 meals a day. If you look at the origin of the 3 meals a day thing, it came from the Industrial Revolution and controlling people about when they would take their breaks to eat.
Mhm.
So they decided, okay, we'll have a break in the morning, a break in the, because they said eat whenever you want, and then everybody's taking a break all the time, and then productivity went down. So they said, okay, in the morning at this time you can eat, in the middle of the day you can eat, and at the end of the day you can eat. So then it became kind of a thing, and then it, life started revolving
Perpetuated around
that.
that. Mhm.
But if you think about us as human beings and the Homo sapien, we used to be hunters and gatherers. So we'd go around and gather food and eat it as we had it. And we didn't have big meals every day because it wasn't always available, especially meat. So maybe we would have meat once or twice a week. And then the other thing that people think we have to eat when we're hungry, that's the worst time in the world to eat. You should eat when you're not hungry. So if you actually feel hungry, you think, oh my God, I'm starving, I gotta eat, don't eat then. Go drink some water, go lay down, go do something else, and when that hunger goes away, that's when you eat, because your hormones are really off if you're starving. And think again, if we go back to how we're designed, if we were hungry all the time, if we didn't have food, it would incapacitate us as beings to be able to go hunt food and gather food and everything. If you're always
True,
hungry all the
yeah.
time. So we're designed to be eat when we are required, and when we have food in front of us, as we start eating, it turns that part of the brain. So little kids, they're getting that started, and there could be something off in that. There could be some little switch that's not completely turned on. So it's hard to tell, but I would definitely want to rule out some actual medical things, like, is there a nutritional deficiency? Like, we have a really easy test at the office. It's not blood. We just scan your hand.
Okay.
And it'll tell if there's nutritional deficiencies, and not just what's when you go get blood tests, it just tells you a snapshot of what's going on. And it tells you what's outside the cell. It doesn't tell you what's inside the cell, which is more important. What's inside the cell, what's actually working.
Right.
So a lot of times these tests will look like you have too much of something. It's actually you're very deficient in it, and it's sitting outside the cell and it can't get inside the cell.
That makes sense.
That's what type 2 diabetes is you have too much sugar outside the cell because your body stops reacting to insulin, which is the door, the key that opens the door to let the sugar into the cell. So you don't have any sugar inside your cell, so you're literally starving to death. That's why people that are diabetic, they start muscle wasting because the body starts looking for any source of energy.
How else is it going to get that nutrition?
Yes, so it starts muscle wasting. So that's one thing I would rule out a nutritional deficiency, and you could easily rectify that. And then the other thing is an absorption issue. That where is the nutritional deficiency coming from? Now, it could be the food presented. That's 99% of the time what it is. But it also could be a malabsorption issue, that there's some...
And you can see that in your...
I can't see that. I could infer it from certain things that we could do.
Okay.
But if there's a stark deficiency, then you have to look at why is there a deficiency. Is it the food presented, or if the food is presented and eaten and there's still a deficiency, then we would go, well, that's an absorption thing. But if you get a picky eater, a very, very picky eater, and I was actually a very picky eater when I was a kid. I would eat macaroni and cheese and grilled cheese, and that's about it. And I would eat if I ate a burger, it had to be meat and cheese and a bun, and that's it. So that's kind of normal that kids will get picky, and it's up to the parent to present to the kid, this is what we're going to eat. And I know for parents now, it's terrible. They don't have much choice. There's not a lot of good choices. There's lots of choices, but there's not good choices. And then the convenience makes it.
And the pressure, like, oh my God, I want you to eat something.
Yes, and it's okay. Like, if you presented him, I would argue that if you present him with food, he's gonna, I don't want that. Okay, and this is what the kitchen's making today is vegetables and blah blah blah, whatever it is, and I don't want that. I don't want that. He will get hungry enough and he will eat it.
What if he doesn't? 4 hours later, 5
4
hours
hours later, he is going to be just fine, and 4 or 5 hours later, he's still going to be just fine.
And the next day, he's going to be starving.
And then he'll eat it, or he won't until he does. So he's not going to starve to death in 24, 48 hours. It's just not going to happen. But I think you would be shocked at what would happen if that was what was presented. You have a very hardwired brain, a little 4-year-old brain, but it's still very hardwired. This is food, and this is the only food we have. And probably he doesn't eat because his body knows this is junk and I shouldn't eat it. But that's all that's presented to him. So if he started having something else presented, the cool thing about the gut is it regenerates in 3 days. So if you had a really good presentation of good nutritious food, and he didn't eat, and the next day he didn't eat, the next day he didn't eat, as long as he's getting liquid in him, he's going to be fine. He is not going to starve to death. The liquid is the only real kicker here. He has to drink something, water or whatever. But and then you could slip minerals and vitamins into his water.
That's what they do. They use Zeal.
They have some Zeal they use. And what about, you'd mentioned something about a 2-year-old, which is why we started filming, because you mentioned something. I'm like, wait.
Well,
Dallar's only 4. Tell us.
2-year-olds is actually a very. It's usually the first time that kids get really picky and stop eating. And the school of thought in all my training is let them self-direct what they eat at that age. Because
at 2,
and I've had patients come into the emergency room. He hasn't eaten in 48 hours, and we do labs and this kid's fine. They're just their body is saying, I don't need that right now. I'm growing, and when you're growing and you eat, you interrupt the growing process. So the body.
What do you mean?
So the body has to take time away from growing. Same with healing. That's why fasting and healing go hand in hand. you can if you start fasting when you're sick, you will heal much quicker. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but that's how we're designed. We're not designed to have all this food. For one thing, most people eat way too much food. Way too much food. The body doesn't need that much food. The body doesn't need as much food as we think it, and we've been socialized and it's been bombarded in us.
What about, so Valor's 4, and so, you know, I'm not the mom, but if I was a mom, I'd be thinking, well, what about nutrition? I mean, he's 4 years old, this is foundation years. I mean, what happened with the 2-year-old that you saw?
They were fine, because I had some that wouldn't eat, and they don't want to eat this and they don't want to eat that. Again, you keep presenting what it is that you want them to eat. They will eat, unless there's some big psychological issue or big medical issue. They will eat.
What about the body code that you talked about? What about that?
You know, I had a little patient that was 2, and she was the opposite. She was reacting to everything she ate. Like, she couldn't eat because she would eat something and get diarrhea, start throwing up, have hives, all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was really bad, and the mom was really scared, and she'd been to several doctors. Nobody could figure it out, and she was just...
I know holistic is the last course.
It is.
Finally get answers.
It is. I did 2 remote body. I've never even seen the child in person. I did 2 remote sessions, and she's fine. She's eating just fine. So that would be, you know, ruling out something, you know, overtly physical, and then looking at it at that level, and you know, if it sounds woo-woo, you know, it's actually science, that we have an instructional field around every cell, every organ, every body, that's given the instructions of how things are supposed to work, and that gets corrupted. And that's what we can do with the body code, is actually defrag the hard drive, run a virus scan basically, and get things to work again. The other thing could be a Rasha, and you just come sit in the room and color, or draw, or do whatever, and that can even be remote. You can, you know, have it on speaker and just have it in the room, or if you'll wear headphones. Some kids now are so socialized to have headphones on, they do fine, but those are options. But I would start with the most obvious thing, physical, and see
She
if
went and she took him to someone, a food therapist. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And I don't remember everything other than she watched him for a while just to see behaviors, and then that I don't remember what the exact end result was of that, but you're just taking steps.
Yep, I think that's a reasonable approach to look at if there's some psychological component to it. Now, did he always have this, or was there just an event that he just stopped eating?
I don't remember since.
I mean, when he was an infant,
he would eat when he was tiny.
He would eat fine.
I remember sitting at the table with the little thingy of floppy, and he would eat.
So I would want to know when he stopped eating, or when he got really super picky, and was there something that happened? Because sometimes these could be triggered by some kind of trauma, and I say trauma, I don't mean some big major trauma, but it could be something, you know, it could be he choked on some food, and now
or he saw somebody else at school.
Yeah, something. You know, I would say that would be something I'd want
even
to know.
Even something on TV.
Yep, that would be something I'd want to know, and then I really would start with, okay, we're gonna until, you know. It sounds like it would be based on the parents' tolerance, you know, as to how long you can hold out. Like, I don't treat fevers in kids. I treat parents' tolerance in fevers, because they're the ones having to deal with the.
They want to stop the fever instead of letting it run its course.
Well, not only that, is you got a little whiny, cryy, you know, kid, and they can't, you know, they don't want to deal with it. So that's part of it. So. He's going to protest. He's going to absolutely protest. He's going to throw a big fit.
Yep.
And he's been trained. This is what food is. And I get, you know, I would also wonder what in his life he's trying to control. You know, like, is there some part of his life that's out of control? And this usually food and self-limiting behaviors around food, like anorexics and other things, have a control issue. And yes, he's 4, but I don't know if there's something that's you know, happening in his life that's requiring him to try to control.
They're looking
something.
for a different school right now. They They see some things occurring that make them very uncomfortable, and they're looking for a better school for him
Okay.
right now.
Well, I would say
That'll help.
I would say something. I would rule out something happening. There was some event. Like if there's some time that you could say he was fine and he wasn't fine, what happened in his life around that time, and see if there's some other thing that could be contributing to this. And it could be a perfect storm of a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, and now it's all manifesting into and materializing into this. But I think
Good question.
I think he needs to be examined by somebody, and make sure there's not something actually physically going on.
Yeah.
Is there a specific kind of doctor that would be kind enough to be able to and what kind of test would that be?
Well, I would want to see,
an
make
absorption
sure his
test, what is
GI
that?
tract is fully
Okay.
formed
Okay.
correctly, because
Okay.
that could be part of it.
Okay.
There's lots of different disorders of the GI tract. So we live in the biggest medical center in the world, so there's definitely pediatric GI doctors. Our daughter had a GI problem, and we had a pediatric GI doctor to rule out anything medical and physical. And if that all checks out and the GI tract is intact, it's functioning how it's supposed to, it's the peristalsis is how it's supposed to, because you don't know that, like Hannah, our daughter, she was born with malrotated intestines, so her intestines were all just jumbled up inside.
How did you figure that out?
She coded on me at home, stopped breathing, and yeah, so that happened at 5 weeks old. But the other thing that Hannah had was no cardiac sphincter at the top of her stomach. So there's a little flap that opens and closes. She didn't have one of those.
The flap, the lower esophageal. Yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what was stuck open on me.
Yep.
During
well,
COVID.
she didn't
Yes.
have one at all.
Oh my goodness.
So what I noticed, she always had pain when she ate and everything. But I noticed when she was about 11, 12 months old, she would sit in the high chair like this, straight. And this is a third kid. We know this is not normal for a kid.
Yeah.
Or she would sit there and rock and straight.
Boy,
rock
she
and
knew
straight.
what to do with her body,
Yes,
didn't she?
yeah, at that age.
The body's
Wow.
smart.
And so we took her to the doctor, and they did a pH probe where they put a little thing down her nose, and they could see she had a pH of 2 in the back of her stomach, or back of her
A
throat.
what?
pH of 2, hydrochloric acid level acid in the back of her throat.
Ooh.
So she had
Burning
not
her throat.
really known a time without
Pain.
pain her entire life. And she was pre-verbal, so she couldn't really tell us, hey, this hurts. But she's had 3 surgeries for that, to fix that. But that was a physical thing. So if he has something like that that's causing him pain or causing him some discomfort that he doesn't have
And he
words
doesn't even
for,
know because
Yeah.
he's never had a body before. He didn't know.
Yeah, he lives in that body,
Right.
And he doesn't know that this is
Abnormal.
and his body's going, no, don't do that. Some part of his brain is going, no, don't do that. Don't eat that. And especially if he's picky about food, it could be a malabsorption issue, and he eats that food, and there's some reaction. His brain's going, no, don't do that again, because the limbic part of your brain will put that kind of stuff in there and say, next time that we're in front of that, we're going to set the alarms off.
See, that's what happened to me during COVID when I stopped eating. And I told Craig, I said, I can't eat. He's like, you have to eat. I really can't. And 6 weeks later, I'm still not eating
Yeah.
because everything inside me said, don't eat. And then what did we find out? My lower esophageal sphincter was stuck open, and my digestion was literally flowing in the wrong direction
Yeah.
for 6 weeks. And
Yeah.
that's why I couldn't eat.
Yeah.
So I knew,
Yeah.
but I could verbalize something's wrong.
Yes.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
It may not be anything wrong, too. It could.
Absolutely.
That's
but I
what
think
wisdom, what you're saying.
I think it's important. Like I used to tell people in the emergency room, I may not be able to tell you what it is, but I will be able to tell you what it's not, which is just as important. That we can say it's not that, it's not that, it's not that. Then we can narrow down what it possibly is.
And if it's some kind of frequency or psychological thing, we can get that. handled as well.
I don't believe that starting there is the best course of action. I think
Right.
starting at, is there something physical wrong? Is there something physical
And she
with
may
the
have done
GI
that, I
tract?
just don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that would be the first place to start, and then see what the nutritional status is, because you may scan him, do blood or whatever, and he is fine, just fine.
Yeah, that's what doctors have said. Is that everything looks fine.
Yeah.
He's normal.
Yeah, if he's in normal weight, normal growth pattern, he's on his the normal scale.
Yep.
I wouldn't worry about it. I would present the food and keep presenting the food. And like I was saying, if mom's tolerance of how much she can take the protest, have a deal with herself. Okay, from 8 a.m. to noon, I'm only gonna offer this for food, and then after that, offer whatever she feels like, and then just add an hour every day, and he will start getting trained. This is food. Like we had our kids when they would say, I don't want that for dinner. Okay, this is what the kitchen made, and the kitchen's going to close at whatever time, so you can eat it or not eat it. It's fine. And nobody died.
And you have how many kids?
3.
And how old are they now?
They're in their 30s and 20s, so they all made it. So
Okay.
yeah, and I would look at her things about food, because she's transferring some of that. You said there's some, there's always something with the parent and what their attitudes of food is. Like I had different attitudes because I was a very picky eater, so I had to be very conscious not to be a picky eater for my kids and present them with food that I wouldn't even touch with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
And luckily I have a husband that's very adventurous with food, and now I'm adventurous with food, but I wasn't when we first met. I was meat, potato, and that's it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you, Dr. Cammie. It was very kind of you. Thank you. And by the way, Chelsea and Jeremy, this is Dr. Cammie. Dr. Cammie, meet Chelsea and Jeremy and Valor.
And I'm happy to answer any questions if you ever have any questions, if you feel the need.
Yeah, she's in Sugar Land, so okay, bless you. Thank you.